Welcome, college basketball fans, to the Full Court Press Podcast with LT and Sammy D. This is the podcast that brings you legendary stories from college basketball's golden era and dives in deep with a current analysis of today's game. Get ready for the most energetic and entertaining college basketball podcast around. Let's get it.
Hello and welcome to another Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience. Luke Taylor here. Sammy's with me again, and we're talking another conference preview, and we're talking the SOCON Southern Conference with two fine gentlemen. We got UNC-GREENSBORO's the Spartans, Coach Mike Jones, and Chattanooga Mocs, Dan Earl, joining us on the Full Court Press to talk a little SOCON. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Don't get too excited to jump in, but
I didn't want to show up Coach Jones. I was letting him go. He's got a couple of minutes.
He's letting the older guy go first. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, it's all good, guys. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you guys on. And, we're almost at 30 conference preview shows, and so it's been a privilege to talk to a lot of head coaches around the country, see what we'll call it an off season, but I don't think there was much off in the season for you guys. And now you guys are in the full swing of fall, and tip off is just a couple weeks away. So, Coach Jones, let's start with you and the Spartans. How's your team looking this year? How's the roster coming together? How are the guys getting along?
Hey, Coach. Before you answer that, how happy are you that Vontarius Woolbright is no longer in the conference?
Yeah, I was. That was great. And then the big fella for Sanford went in the portal, and then Trey Bonham went in the portal, and so it was getting ready to be a banner summer. And then Trey Bonham came back, and then it became a much worse summer. But for me, at least, for Dan, I think it was great.
So how did your team look, Coach? How'd the offseason go for you?
Well, all season went well. Unfortunately, we recruited basically throughout the summer. We actually got our last scholarship guy in, I guess you could call it September. So it was a long summer. We didn't get our usual time off, and so I feel like I'm still on since last season, but it is exciting transition now that we're getting to scrimmages and games and things like that. So, but it was a good off season.
Good. What about you, Coach Earl and the Mocs? How was your off season, if there is any?
Yeah, good on the whole. You guys brought it up. The timeline of the season, the way the calendar works now is such a difference from what it used to be, right? So you play your season. I'm stating the obvious, but you're having meetings with everybody on your roster, see who's coming, who's going, which is a little different in the last X amount of years. And then obviously the transfer portal hits, so there's this huge spike in amount of time, particularly in the recruiting end in the April, May, that time of year. So it's been interesting to say the least. And as Coach Jones brought it up, you are rooting against some of the teams even in the off season, right? Hoping they jump into the portal. Nothing illegal or anything. I hope Coach Jones wasn't calling any teams telling them to take Trey Bonham or anybody else, but I know he wouldn't do that. But no, you end up rooting against those guys, and we did have
I absolutely would do that.
We know each other pretty well, so I don't put it past them, So, but we are lucky to have our backcourt back in Honor Huff and Trey Bonham. Trey, as Coach Jones alluded to, dipped his toe back in the portal, and we were able to retain him. I was with both of them at VMI years ago. And then we added a bunch of pieces like everybody did. So trying to, counting down the days on the season, but still have a lot to put in and get everybody on the same page. But I really like our group.
Yeah. So Coach Earl, you hit the portal pretty hard. And then you also have 3 freshmen coming in, right? How do you change your coaching philosophy when you have just almost a completely new locker room? I mean, obviously you've got some great leadership in there as well with Honor Huff, but how quickly do you feel like you need to find the pieces and figure out who your starting 5 is, and how quickly is that coming together?
Yeah, it has changed a little bit. It's still putting together a team, but I think you're trying to get them on the same page, get them acquainted with each other. So we have them here for the summer, going out to dinner. different events so that they like each other in general. And then getting them on the floor, so you're working in the summer and trying to figure out your pieces and what tweaks you can make. To be honest with you, a little bit of we might be a little less intricate than we used to be, really on both sides of the ball. We used to play like a matchup zone, and right, wrong, or indifferent, we kind of got away from it. Not that we played great defense when I was at VMI, but it's just hard to get everybody on the same page when you don't have that year in and year out, and guys are getting older and older and understand your style and system. So to your point, I have tweaked some things and made it a little less intricate over the years, but it's still coaching and trying to get everybody on the same page. And while everybody has individual goals, and that's good to have individual goals, you hope that they're still about the team and winning basketball games.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and I wanted to say this earlier, but Sam keeps cutting me off, which is not. It's pretty much all not uncommon. But when I first learned or really started following your conference is when Bucky McMillan threw out their big man 5'8" Dallas Graziani to take a tip against Purdue's 7'4" Zach Edey. We've seen Zach Edey in the flesh, and he's a big dude. What did you guys think about that?
Well, I thought it was typical Bucky. Bucky's always
not on this Zoom call, right? Or
no, man, I tell Bucky, man, he is definitely a flamboyant guy. He's very animated all the time, and he's always got some exciting ideas, and so that didn't surprise me in the least bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I it was certainly intriguing. I saw it as well, but it just shows me that I'm old and have to get more with the times, because it made an impression on you amongst other people. So, and you created a fight between my staff and I, who was saying I have to get on, social media more and come up with those things, So thanks for doing that.
If Dan is old school, I am ancient school.
That's a way to do it, but
it even makes sense to me, man. So, but these young guys, man, they got these new, fresh ideas, and they're trying to push me out, but I ain't going nowhere yet.
Yeah. I want to go back to Trey Bonham. It's really interesting that he came back, average, scoring about 16 points per game last year. What's really interesting with him is he played at Florida, and he averaged under 6. Did you expect him to kind of have such a good year right after transitioning from the SEC, Coach?
You know what? I kind of did. I was familiar with him. To take you a step back, he was with us at VMI for 2 years. So when we ended up making the change here to Chattanooga as a staff, Trey ended up going to Florida, as you mentioned, and kind of tested that level. And look, there's a certain element of it. It's about fit and how you fit in, who else is in the program for him personally at Florida. It's also a different level, right? So, and I think what happened with him is, he came back, he was familiar with us, our style play. I've coached him before, and our staff has. So I think it was a more seamless transition, and we knew what he would bring. He did have a very good year for us, which we're thrilled to have him back again, but he's an elite finisher, can get downhill, can create a 2-on-1, if you will, dynamic and transition, and when he's locked in, can play some defense. Also shoots the ball well from the floor. So we're ecstatic to have him back. As Coach Jones meant, he went into the portal again, and I'm trying to have different conversations with him about, hey, didn't you just do that? And it seems to be working out better for you here at Chat. So, but he's a wonderful young man, and we were able to talk to him about coming back. So we're excited to have him for his 5th year.
Coach, Coach Jones, is there any guys that maybe might take that step that, Trey did, like a guy like Malik Henry or Ronald Polite III, both from George Mason? I mean, Ronald averaged about just under 8 a game at George Mason, which is it's the A-10. I mean, it's a great conference just like yours. Is there any kind of surprises that you can kind of share, even though Coach Earl is on the show with us?
Yeah, there'll be no secrets by the time Dan and I play each other, So, for those guys, playing at that level and being, they play for good coaches. They actually played for 3 different coaches at George Mason. And so they played for Paulson, and then Kim English, and then the current coach there, Tony Skinn. And so all good coaches, really good league. And so, Ron, he comes in, and it's seamless for him because he's such a high IQ guy. So that was great to see. And then Malik, he's just, he only knows one way to play, and that's, hard. And so, again, easy to, fit into our style of play. But, I think it depends on the guy, how seamless that transition is. And fortunately for us, with those two guys, it has been pretty seamless.
And don't sleep on Kenyon Giles either, Luke. I mean,
here we go.
Good kid from Radford. He's Big South all freshman team. So it's a sophomore year, put up 14 points per game in the Big South. So I mean, I'm expecting. Hopefully he can get some minutes with you this year, Coach Jones, and hopefully.
Yeah, I think I might play him a couple minutes or two.
I was gonna say, man, I don't want to sleep on him in this conversation because
yeah, I mean, I think it's good.
He's going to be one of those newcomers in the conference that people are going to get some eyes on early this season.
Yeah, I hope a lot of people sleep on him. He's my type of guy. Like, before I talk about him a little bit, Dan, it's really special. And I usually don't compliment Dan, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. Just this one time, I'm going to compliment Dan. But I mean, it's amazing that he coached guys at VMI that followed him to Chattanooga, which is very unusual. And then guys that didn't follow him but came back to him at Chattanooga. So it's a testament to him as a person and to his staff, man. So those guys, I wish they didn't like him as much as they do, because they have been pains in the butt here in the SOCON. But, that's really saying something about Dan and how he coaches them and what type of person he is and what type of person those young men are. So.
And Coach Earl entered the transfer portal because he went from VMI to Chattanooga.
Yeah, you have to. First of all,
he got paid too, boy. Good.
I know he got paid.
So you guys are seeing Coach Jones' personality, right? He softens you up, and then he's all nice, and then he comes out and kicks your tail and takes it to you every time. So he's beaten us enough that he can do all this. He sounds like the nice guy, So yeah, I guess this whole thing with the new normal of transfer portal, and coaches do it, So I was at VMI for 7 years, so this ended up working out well here at Chattanooga. I'm super thankful to be here. So, but thank you for your nice words, Coach, and then take it easy on us this year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, the conference preseason poll and all conference teams came out recently with the SOCON, and it's pretty interesting because it's kind of like throwing darts. But last year, Stanford won the conference. They're predicted to win it again this year. 77 votes. I wonder if you guys voted for them or not. Chattanooga 2, the Buccaneers, East Tennessee State is 3, and then Warford, Furnham, and UNC-GREENSBORO is coming in 6. I mean, let's be honest. Does this really all matter, these preseason polls and rankings?
I would say no. We talk to our guys, whether it's individually getting picked on first or second team or what have you, or where you're at the start of the season, and I'm sure all of us use, no one believes in us if you're ranked a little bit higher, or, hey, don't get too big ahead or whatever. But to me, especially nowadays with the transfer portal and no one knowing who's on whose roster, to me, I put very little into it, but we're shooting for, obviously, Samford because they went last year to the tournament and everybody's trying to get there.
Do you think VMI gave themselves their 10 points in the preseason poll?
Go easy. I was at VMI for 7
years. I'm just
messing
But the thing with these conferences, and Sam and I've talked to all these coaches, that we've done, I think this is like our 25th conference preview interview show. Once conference starts, it doesn't matter if the team is 3-10 coming in non-conference to conference schedule. I mean, everybody plays tough games, whether it's against VMI, the Citadel, Mercer, it doesn't matter, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, again, I think Andrew Wilson's doing a great job there at VMI. It has its challenges, as the military aspect,
it's different.
recruiting there and everything. So, and it's a wonderful place, but, and I know you didn't mean anything by it. It's that was a funny comment, but it is, I mean, and sometimes, certainly some schools are going to be more talented than others, but you see it. I mean, especially in this day and age on the football side, and I don't know, one SEC team beats the, number one team in the nation and comes back and loses to whatever they are in the nation. So there's upsets all the time. You put the human element into it, let alone they're all well-coached basketball teams and have great support. So that's just my feeling on it.
Hey, Coach Jones, say it with me, Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt.
You know what you did last year to me? You made me a believer. So on the Tuesday, you lost to Vanderbilt 74-70, and then you go to number 14 Arkansas on a Friday and you beat them 78-72. That was a fantastic game. I watched it.
Yeah, you know what he did? He spoke nicely about their coaches and said, they did a great job. They went out and kicked their tails again.
I definitely did not speak nicely about the coach at Arkansas. Maybe the coach at Vanderbilt. I was actually pissed that we lost to Vanderbilt. We played poorly in the first half, and we played great in the second half, and we had such a big hole. But those games are a lot easier to play than the SOCON games. The SOCON games, you're so well scouted. You've played against these guys for a couple of years. They know your basic tendencies. So those games, when you go play a high major, they don't think very much of the SOCON and mid majors and low majors. And so, it's a lot easier to get your guys motivated and knowing that the other team is probably sleeping on you a little bit. But there's no such thing when you get to play, Chattanooga and Sanford and Wofford and Furman. There's no sneaking up on any of those guys. So, yeah.
Do you find it harder with everything being more analytically driven, especially from like the high major power conferences? Is it harder to schedule non-conference games?
Yeah, it was a bear, and
the problem is you beat Arkansas. You shouldn't have done that. It would have been easier for you, Coach.
From a high major standpoint, I get it, I understand, and nowadays the way the scheduling, thought process has changed with high majors. They're not playing any quad 2 or quad 3 games. They're going to play quad 1s because they know they have to, and then they're going to play 4 so they can beat people by 40 points. And then anybody who they think can come within 30, it's a hard sell. And so it took us all the way into July to get 2 high majors to play us. And then, I think a couple of years ago, they beat a high major as well. So, it's really difficult. A lot of our teams in the league have done that, have gone into high major territory and gotten wins. And so every time it happens, it just makes it even harder, regardless of analytics. It's the eye test.
Yeah, Coach Earl, how does your non-conference schedule look? And is it becoming more and more difficult for a program like Chattanooga?
Yeah, it really is. And Coach Jones alluded to that. We were able to beat Louisville last year. Who I know didn't have an unbelievable year.
Coach, you and everybody else, no offense. Hey, we're DePaul. Coach, we're DePaul.
Hey, you still get the check in the W, Dan. Don't worry about what Luke is talking about.
I know, right?
But Mike said it well. It's hard to schedule this, and we have some meetings as a conference and everything. At times, there's some companies that help you out and give you scheduling advice, so you lean on them or whatever. But what's tough is some of their clients are also those high major schools, right? So, we were in some meetings. I'm, raised my hand like, hey, you're telling us to schedule up and play some high majors but you're giving them, so how does this work out? So at the end of the day, you got to get some games. So it gets really interesting with the scheduling piece, certainly.
Yeah. And last year, Sam and I talked about, I used to do mid-major minutes every week because there was just like 5 or 6, 7 upsets a week. And I'm looking at the schedule this year. I just don't see that many because of the whole quad 1, quad 4 competitions. That quad 2, quad 3 are going to be playing really good schedules, but they're going to be beating the crap out of teams like them, which is great for basketball. And they're going to have to do it if they want to try to get more than one bid out of some of these conferences like yourselves.
Yeah, it's definitely different now, but still, like Dan said earlier, transfer portal, you don't know exactly who you have, or
right.
Other teams don't know who you have. And so when you go in there and play them, a guy could get a really good Division II player like Dan got. This kid, Frank Champion, he's a heck of a player. And so they go in there and play those guys, and they don't know. And so there are going to be some surprises still.
Coach, he has a couple more. He has a kid from Ohio, from Greene, Ohio, Garrison Kessler from Walsh. I know about that kid. And then you got Jack Costel from UA Huntsville. So I mean,
Garrison, who right?
Hey, Kessler. I'm Canadian. Why would it be like this?
Yeah,
no, absolutely. When you don't have the amount of money that Coach Jones is handing out there, NIL wise, you got to do what you got to do. So now we do. It's our belief that, hey, as in particular as guys get older, there's not a whole lot of difference between Division I and Division II and Division III. Even there's some really good players at the top levels of the lower divisions that can play at any level. So no, whether that bodes to be true for our guys, but I really do like those guys. They're seasoned, they're older, they've been well coached, they're a little more physical. They've been, again, through the battles of college basketball. So we're excited about them. I think a couple guys that can really play and pass and see, which matters to us. So we're excited about those guys for sure.
Yeah, Coach Jones gave you a nice little compliment earlier. I do want to touch on that for you, Coach Earl, like with some of the guys who you've kept in contact over the years, right? Like how important is like the bonds and the relationships with these players? And has it changed because of NIL and transfer portal? I mean, years ago, it used to be like, okay, you get one transfer, you can't transfer within the same conference. And all this is kind of out the window now. Like how important is it to kind of your model and just also kind of you as a human to kind of create these bonds? Kids coming out of high school, maybe playing for a year, transfer, like what are those relationships like these days?
Yeah, well, I'll thank Coach Jones we have a young man, Honor Huff, on our team that is a really good player as well, was with us at VMI and here at Chattanooga. And I think Coach Jones had on a vote on he had to sit a year actually. So he came to Chattanooga and sat a year. I'm teasing him because he was one of the coaches that was on the up and up and told me straight up, he's like, whatever his vote was. So
I'm like, hey, I can't vote for that, man. I mean, I know it's going to take, I'm going to get it whipped the next year.
No,
so he was that butt whipping for 1 year.
Yeah. And before I get into that, but what I think is awesome about the Southern Conference, but and I've been to a lot of different places, I'm sure you have, but you can see like, Coach Jones and I genuinely, at least I can speak for myself. I don't know. He's, building. He's a great guy, and I have tremendous respect for him. And we tease each other, see each other, on the road or whatever, hang out. But then we want to kick each other's tails when we're playing, So I think it's cool to have that relationship rather than so much animosity and all that good stuff. So I think he does a heck of a job. But to your point about the relationships, it still matters. I think it matters immensely. We've been able to retain a couple guys in Trey Bonham, in Honor Huff. We had a young man, Jake Stevens, a couple of years back that followed us from VMI. But it is getting harder and harder because the money gets more and more immediate, more and more real. And at times you can't blame the kids, you know what I mean? It's all situational. But I think if you try to treat them right, and, we're still, call it old school, call it what you will, but we still do some things to try to help them, which I'm sure everybody is, but a personal development series, trying to give them advice on how to be successful later on in life. Spend time with them, all those big things that so it's not just the basketball end of it, but it's certainly getting harder with each passing day.
Yeah. So I know you're not really care about other teams in your conference. You're more worried about your own, but can we expect any surprises this year for any teams in the SOCON, or do you think it's going to be well, it is. I know what it's going to be like, but what do you guys expect in this year?
For me, as usual, it's just going to be a bloodbath. It's Dan and I both finished 12-6 last year in the league and tied for second. And we were a distant second because Sanford was just so much far ahead than everybody else. But on any given year, it's a tough night in and out, tough game. Night in and night out. And so I think there's nothing going to be different this year, even though we've lost a lot of good players from the league. There are a couple, at least one new coach, two new coaches in the league. And, Western Carolina got a hell of a coach. And the coach down at Mercer, I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about him. So, it's going to be a heck of season again. And even though teams may have lost a lot, I think they're going to be, right back because of the portal and because of good coaching.
Yeah.
I know Coach Jones shouldn't be picked any lower than, first or second every year. So, don't sleep on them.
I'm so happy we are pick 6 right now. You don't have no idea.
I hear you. But yeah, it is, year in and year out, it's unbelievable league. In fact, when I was, you go back, I don't know if it was 9 or 10 years ago, I went through the process of VMI or what have you. My former boss, Ed DeChellis, was at East Tennessee State. And that was back when like Davidson was in the league and College of Charleston, all, App State, Georgia State, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was like, go to VMI and see what you can do, mess around and see if you can win some games or whatever, So I ended up going there and I walked in the league. I was like, what is going on? Mike Young is at, Wofford, and Steve Forbes has a role in ETSU, and the list goes on. And Wes Miller's at, Bob Ritchie and Nico at Furman. So it's been a well-coached league over the years. It continues to be that, as Mike said, great coaches coming into the league. Tim Kraft, obviously, and Ryan Ritter. Tim Kraft at Western Carolina did a heck of a job at Gardner-Webb. But it's just, like a lot of leagues, but it's super competitive night in, night out. I would say, Wofford, they were able to retain a good amount of their team, and back to, you kind of started that off, but bringing in new guys into the fold, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with that, different personalities, getting them on the same page. So I would say I don't want to name anybody in particular, but I know Wofford retained a good amount, so don't sleep on them as well.
Yeah.
So LT, you think we're ready for the shot clock here?
I don't know if I'm ready. Okay.
So,
Coach, a little bit nervous
on the Full Court Press podcast called The Shot Clock. LT is going to fire off 5 or 6 questions, quick little one-hitters. Some of them might be one-word answers. One of them might be a little conference trivia. One of them might be a little fun. Whatever comes to mind, just let it rip. And the platform's yours.
All right, we're going to go nice and easy and kind of ease into this part of the podcast. Favorite conference official?
Coach Jones.
0.
Let me think.
Coach Jones.
That's different. I love them all. I love them all. That's the difference here.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm saying I don't have a favorite.
Okay.
Because I care about them all so much.
You see that recovery?
Yeah.
That's
good. We've had coaches have played said, "Yep, there's no one good in our conference." Like, oh god.
And then we've had other coaches say, "Hold on," and they like pull up the official run. They're just.
Hey, I'll be honest. I would have to pull up a roster because a lot of these guys I don't know the name, and so I have somebody write the 3 officials' names down, and because for the first half I'm calling them by the wrong name, and I'm wondering why I'm not getting any good calls.
Yeah. So this is a good question to lead into. It's kind of just made this up on the fly. Who has the most technical fouls between the two of you in your coaching career? Let's see how many we each have here.
Is this out there? I'll say Coach Jones.
I would agree, but we both have low numbers. Like Dan, he never. I mean, if you watch him on the sideline, if you ever seen Billy Donovan coach, I mean, there is no reaction to anything. He is very stoic.
Arms are folded.
Yeah, very stoic. I've seen him yell maybe once, so I would say I definitely have more technical fouls than Dan.
How many do you have, Coach? Let's hear how many you each have.
Since I've been at Greensboro, or
no, in general, whole coaching career.
So if I've been coaching 14 years, I've probably got 12 technicals, less than 1 a year.
Coach Earl?
Goodness. I'll say I got 5 in 10 years.
Yeah, we asked this to the Horizon League coaches, Coach Kaufman and Coach Campy, and Coach Kaufman said he has like 10 in like 12 years, and Coach Campy's like, my first year coaching, I got 16.
So, do you have those answers or no?
Do you have the stats, LT?
No, I don't. I'm just curious. We're doing about personal reflection.
We're gonna look it up. We'll add the stats.
We're not gonna look it up. You're gonna look it up.
I'll look it up. We'll add the stats.
One of mine that shouldn't count. I'm playing at Virginia Tech when I'm at VMI, and I'm yelling at one of our players across the court, and the official thought I was yelling at him. So then I lost and teed me up. I almost got tossed or whatever. So
yeah. So we won't, if you get any of these so-called exhibition games, these scrimmages that social media are clamoring over the scores, if you get a technical of that, we won't count it toward your record. So you're good. One word to describe the Southern Conference, the SOCON conference. One word.
For lack of a better word, just competitive. night in and night out, really well coached, really good players. And, I know I've been around college basketball for a while. I know there's a lot of leagues that are really good, but again, the coaching and how competitive it is, I don't know if we get the amount of credit we deserve, nationally. And so I just say competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we get enough credit. People don't pay enough attention sometimes to the league, but I would say relentless, because you can't every week you got 2 games, and every week those 2 games, regardless of the opponent, require your undivided full attention. And sometimes that's a Wednesday, Saturday. Sometimes that's a Thursday, Saturday. Sometimes that's on the road and at home. It's relentless.
Okay. Toughest place to play in your conference?
I'll say that. I'll say probably for us it has been Samford, because we have not won down there since I've been here. East Tennessee State and Chattanooga are both tough because they get great crowds. But I would say for us right now, it's been Samford.
Okay. Coach Earl?
Yeah, I would say, obviously Samford's got it rolling recently. That's probably the toughest. Although I would put VMI in there if it's a Saturday core game, and maybe a little bit more because I used to be there, or some of our players used to be there, so they can get kind of interesting, the fans, what have you. So, but
yeah, we've been lucky. For some reason, we haven't. I know I'm gonna look at the schedule now. We're gonna be right there on that core weekend, but they are relentless. We were at Radford one time playing VMI, and we had a senior who was losing a little bit of his hair, and so he took the ball out on the sideline right in front of the student section, and they just kept yelling "row gain, row gain." It was the funniest thing, man. I mean, we all bust out laughing, including the kid who was losing his hair. So, yeah, they can be relentless on you.
They really can, and they get the whole core of cadets there on Saturday games, so it's a tough place to play.
I'm happy they're representing our country. Coach Joan, a little advice: when you play Samford at home, try to have like the arena flood or the electricity go out so you can play at a neutral site.
I'll take that under consideration.
There you go. I got a whole bunch of great advice that no one listens to, especially Sam and my family. But most animated college coach on the sidelines in your conference?
Bucky McMillan, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'd go, Bucky as well. Maybe Brooks Savage. He'll get a little animated, I think, so.
TSU Buccaneers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Who was the team fouls leader in conference last year? Which team got called for the most fouls as a team last year?
UNCG fouls the most, if that's what
I would agree, unfortunately, with that.
Not according to these stats. UNCG, the Spartans were 4th with 17.2. There was 3 teams ahead of them. Who was number 1?
I would say Samford and East Tennessee State probably foul more than anybody.
Mercer was first with 19.1. Who had the least amount of fouls called against them?
Chattanooga.
No, Chattanooga, you were 9th, 15.9. Yeah,
no
there's
way.
someone got called less. And it's funny because it really doesn't translate. This was the Citadel with 14 fouls called a game, and they were second in conference. They were second last in conference. So,
okay. So Chattanooga fouled the second least.
Yes, 15.9.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
We don't play tough enough defense, so we don't foul, obviously. Coach Jones knows that, so.
Yeah. Either that or all the officials are your favorites. That's what you tell them every game.
So who fouls the most, and then who gets called for the most, right?
There you go.
Yeah, that's true. So the last question, they're making a Hollywood movie about the coaches in the SOCON conference. What would the movie be called? What would be the title of the movie?
I would say Southern Discomfort.
Ooh.
I don't like Southern Comfort, man. I had that in college. Ooh.
Yeah, me too. It was a long time ago. So
yeah, Jungle Juice. That stuff was awful.
Southern Discomfort.
I feel like these are, I'm dating myself, Barbara Walters on 60 Minutes asking what kind of treaty you want to take. So
we've asked strange questions. We've asked what candle scent would you be? What's your spirit animal?
Wow.
We get some pretty good answers.
And no coach ever talks to us again. Figure that one out.
Not true.
Actually, you have quite a few. Hey, quick question, and then I'll let Sam finish off. How do you guys like only 10 teams in your conference?
I like it a lot because it's you can play everybody twice, still have a bunch of non-conference games, and it's a uniform decision at the end. So you can in the in the Big South, we had uneven numbers at one point.
Mm-hmm.
You only played the other side one time and things like that. So here we get to play everybody twice. So you get a true champion, I think.
Yeah, I think he said it, extremely well. I agree wholeheartedly. And, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You're fighting 9 other teams for a bid. If you get one bid, hopefully, we've been close to 2 bids over the years. I know it's getting tougher and tougher with each passing year, but we have some really good teams. And I guess I'd rather fight 9 teams than whatever it is, 13 other or 14 other, 15 other.
Yeah. How many in the CAA? It's like 15 or 16.
No, I think they're at 16, right, Sam?
The Sun Belt. The Sun Belt has a ton of
like 14. Well, I mean, we had Coach Pecora and Coach Casey from the MAC with 2 A's, not 1. And, Coach Pecora, I kind of brought that up himself. He's like, it's just tougher to win the conference because they've got Merrimack and Sacred Heart joining. And I don't know for a mid-major, and this is my opinion, and I know Sam agrees with me because he usually does. He's done well in life because of it. But I feel that these bigger conferences, like a superpower mid-major conference, is not good for college basketball. It's not good for your programs because here's the thing. You're only going to get so many bids as it is, and you might not even get an NIT bid. So, I like these 10 or 12 team conferences.
Yeah, I really like it. My brother just he was at Cornell, and he just took the William & Mary job. So I didn't realize the CAA. I knew the CAA had a bunch of teams, but I didn't know it was 14 or 16.
16.
Oh,
yeah. You might want to call them and tell them to transfer back.
That's right.
Yeah. Right, well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on the Full Court Press podcast, the SOCON preview show. I'm going to turn the last minute of the episode over to you guys. Talk about, shout out to your fan bases, boosters, alumni, student sections. Anything you guys are excited about this season. Coach Earl, let's start with you and the Mocs.
Yeah, I mean, I just, it's another college basketball season. Super excited about it. Like our talent level, we have, again, Trey Bonham and Honor Huff in the backcourt that people will be familiar with, but brought in a lot of really good players. They're high character guys, which matters to me. I like to coach high character guys. I think the community's starting to learn that as we get out and about. I think we'll play a fun style, shoot a lot of threes like we typically do. We've been up there in the tops of the nation shooting threes and push the ball in transition. I know everybody says that, but we try to play as fast as possible. And then, hopefully the fans are excited. We've been out with some donor dinners recently, and people seem to be excited. We hope they'll purchase season tickets. And if we can stay healthy, I think we're going to be in the mix and hopefully try to get back to the NCAA tournament for Chattanooga.
Cool. Love it. Coach Jones, how's the excitement in Greensboro?
Yeah, I mean, we had some turnover. We lost the Twins, and the Twins were like institutions here in the community. And so now this is our first year with life without those guys. And I'm excited just to see, where we go from here. We've got some new faces, but we also are fortunate, not quite as fortunate as Wofford, but we have some returners. A lot of them happen to be role players, but I'm always excited to see how a guy takes a step from one year to the next. And because of the work that these guys have put in the off season, I'm excited to see what kind of years they'll have. And I think our community understands that. We've been out and about a little bit. We've got a lot of appointments here in the next 2 weeks as we head toward this first game. And so, I think, being picked low, I think is motivating for myself, and I know for our guys as well. So, I think we're going to see a hungry team. I think the community is going to see a hungry team. And the good thing about it is we're playing more games in Fleming this year than we did before. We only played non-Division I's in Fleming and everything else in the Coliseum. And this year we've got 3 games, including 2 conference games in Fleming, which is a really loud, really good home court advantage. So I think the fans will really enjoy those games.
Not
hear
the
that,
Rocks, right?
I mean, I could change that at any minute.
They're not scared of us enough.
Coach Earl, I think those are fighting words, boss man.
He doesn't need any more fuel, man. He's got the best team in the league. I mean, at least one of the top 3 teams in the league, so he doesn't need any extra fuel.
He's posturing, Coach. He's posturing. He's ready. He
doesn't stop.
His starting backcourt is going to be a first team all conference. So what else do you need?
You might have one of the top backcourts in not only in the conference but mid-major and even in the country. I mean, that's a legitimate backcourt. So
I do really like our guys, and they can make shots, play the right way, and we're excited about them. But don't, he's got Atwell make shots for him. Brett,
Donovan Atwell's a ball player.
We're well aware of UNCG and what a great job Coach Jones does. So,
coaches, thanks so much. You're going to stick on here for one more second as we upload. We'd love to have you back if you'd so care for up in the upcoming season. Sam, another great episode, another great podcast. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Also, check out the College Basketball Weekly, where we do a little commentary, Sam and I, with some journalists and coaches and everything else, kind of a smaller format and more kind of the same with the Full Court Press. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And watch out for UTC Chattanooga and UNC-GREENSBORO in the SOCON conference. And we'll be back next time on the Full Court Press podcast.